Welcome back to week 2, Mr. Haden's Ag Classroom Lessons. We are talking today about a farm-to-fork product you better know as milk. So first off, like I said, welcome back to week 2 of Mr. Haden's Ag Lessons. You're still in my basement and the set has not increased in quality, but we appreciate you viewing. I've heard a lot of different comments from viewers. I appreciate that, and I'm trying to model the shows based on your comments. The other thing I want to get right at the beginning of the show is a good friend of mine, Jeff Kapaska. He sent me a link to his backyard square foot garden that he does a great job in Ames, Iowa, producing a lot of variety of different garden crops as well as other items. And so in the comments of this video, you will see a link for his video, and you can go check it out to learn more about gardening from our last episode on Friday. So when we start with milk, I know the first thing you're thinking of, Mr. Haden, I know everything about milk, or maybe you don't, right? So we got to start with the cow first when we're talking about milk. When we're talking about cattle, the main cow breed we're going to focus on is Holstein. Those are the white cattle with black spots. That is a breed that has been hybridized or bred to produce the largest quantity of milk, okay? Brought it over to America sometime probably in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I actually don't know. If you could Google it for me and let me know tomorrow, that'd be great. But that Holstein breed is really known for a large quantity of milk, okay? It's utterly ridiculous the amount of milk they can produce every day, roughly 8 gallons of milk per day. But you might be wondering, Mr. Haden, I've heard dairy farmers talk about pounds of production. What's the deal with that? Well, when we're talking about pounds of milk, the thing you have to remember with milk is we're breaking it down into the liquid portion and also the butterfat portion. And different breeds of dairy cattle, such as Jersey or Ayrshire, they might have a higher buttermilk or butterfat content, and that helps them, their milk weighs more. So when we're talking about milk production, you'll more than likely hear about pounds of milk. But back to the cow. You might say 8 gallons of milk a day, that seems like a lot. I can't even drink that much. Well, that's right, you can't, or you will vomit. But guess what? A dairy cow is going to eat about 50 to 55 pounds of dry matter. And some of those feedstuffs might be things such as corn, alfalfa hay, silage. Now, those are all wet feeds, meaning there is a percent of moisture in there that when you dry those down, that's why I talked about dry matter, 50 to 55 pounds. But they also have to stay well hydrated. They'll drink anywhere from 30 to 40 gallons of water in one day to help produce the milk that they need. And the other thing we have to think about is a dairy cow does not produce milk year-round 365. It's got to take some time off, just like you or I. There's no coronavirus shutdown for dairy cows. They're still producing right now. And they usually lactate for about 305 days. And speaking of lactating, they only lactate after they've given birth to a calf. And then that period, 305 days, then they'll go through a dry period where they'll get rebred and the process will start all over again. So you might say, wow, Mr. Haden, that sounds like a lot of milk. Well, there's roughly, I got to check my notes here, but there's roughly 9 million dairy cattle in the United States, 75,000 herds. Here in Iowa, we're sporting the 12th highest number of dairy cattle in the nation, only at about 204,000. Now, dairy industry is getting very, very large-scale dairy farms. People are investing money into robotic milkers, decreasing the cost of labor to help decrease the cost of the product. When you think about a gallon of milk being between $3 and $4 a gallon, you're actually getting a lot of bang for your buck. And that's not just any milk, that's the cream of the crop when it comes to milk from a dairy farmer. So in that dairy production, the first thing is the dairy farmer is going to milk the cow using some type of automated milking system. And it sucks the milk from the teats of the cow right here. This is not just a stumpy cow. I just decided not to draw the bottom half of the leg there. But the 4 teats on the udder there, she's going to milk. It might depend, maybe 8 to 10 minutes, just depending on how much milk she has. From there, that milk is going to go into a bulk tank at the farm. And that bulk tank is going to be emptied probably every day or every other day, depending on the size of the dairy. Now, one of the things you hear a lot about is you hear about a purity of the quality of our milk. Number one is we have a very safe milk supply. We make sure there are no extra hormones or there are any additives that are added or any drugs or antibiotics in the milk. Every sample of milk is tested from each farm in that tank before that tanker picks up that milk. And if there is a farm that would contaminate, that farmer has to buy that entire tanker of milk. And then from that milk, we got to make sure that it's safe to drink, and we don't want to drink raw milk, okay? It has some bacteria in that aren't the best for us. The mycobacterium. That is our first Sun Pump commercial today. We're going to hear from Wapsie Valley Creamery. We are way ahead of the competition, and you'll learn more about whey in a minute. And then our good friend Louis Pasteur, back in the 1800s, he came up with pasteurization. And what he found out is if I heat the milk up for 15 seconds to roughly 165 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm going to kill the majority of the bacteria. Not all of them, but enough that the milk is safe to drink for us, and it also can still be used to make the products such as cheese, ice cream, milk, butter, all those different types of products. And then the other thing that we do as a final product when we get our milk to drink is we want it homogenized. And all that means is the fat particles that are in the milk, they need to be dispersed evenly throughout the gallon of milk. It would not taste very good if we had our liquid portion of the milk and then the butterfat portion was just settled at the bottom. So all our milk is homogenized, meaning it's emulsified throughout the milk, okay? And then one thing that a lot of people don't know is the percentages on milk. What do they actually mean? Well, you got lucky this time. Skim milk is about 0.5% fat in that whole gallon. 1% is 1% fat, 2 is 2%, but from there it gets a little dicey. We go to whole milk, which has 3.25% fat by weight, and then butter is 69% fat, and then half and half, maybe used for your baking, is about 10.5 to 18% fat. Now you might be saying, well, Mr. Haden, I thought fat was bad. Well, according to my grandma, fat, sugar, and salt are the only things that make food taste good. So you got to hold up there with all the fat comments because it really does make our food taste good. And like we said, 25,000 pounds of milk per year is what we're shooting for per dairy cow. And then some other things to think about when we're talking about our dairy cattle is sometimes my friend, he declines a glass of milk. How dare he? Okay. And then you're also looking at the dairy cattle, their longevity, their life, maybe 8 to 10 years of production before their production starts to tail off. It is kind of ironic that Chick-fil-A uses Holstein breed cattle in their commercials. It's not very representative of the type of cattle that you usually eat for hamburger. That's kind of off on a tangent, but how do you know when milk spoils? How do you know when milk is actually spoiled? Well, when it complains that the color of car you got for its 16th birthday is wrong. But the other thing you have to think about milk is when you take off the lid and it might smell a little rancid, milk is kind of a perishable product, meaning the shelf life is not as long as some other things. You can't really freeze milk, but you can have dry milk, okay? And what that means is you can have milk powder, and we use that, like I mentioned, at Wapsie Valley Creamery. They separate the whey, which is a protein, and you might see it like in a whey protein mix. They have their liquid and their casein, and then they separate it and use it for different products. At Wapsie Valley Creamery, their specialty is making 500-pound blocks of cheese, about the size of a copier machine, so kind of cool there. No tours, safety reasons, but you can at least think of that in your mind a little bit there. And so when we're thinking about some other types of milk, this is kind of a personal vendetta that I have against milk that actually isn't milk. Number one, you have soy milk, which I believe, I don't speak a lot of Spanish, but I think that just means I am milk, which that's actually wrong because it comes from soybeans. And then you also have almond milk, which how do you milk an almond? It's nuts, right? So both of those milks, in my opinion, they should not be labeled milk. They don't come from an animal. They are just products of crushed up plant-based material. So our next Sun Pump commercial of the day, we got Dairy Queen. Our favorite day to worship is Chocolate Sunday. And then when you think about the dairy cattle industry as a whole, all the different products that we make from our milk, we have our ice cream, our cheese, and we do need a certain amount of bacteria that's actually healthy bacteria to produce those products. And the way that we age those different products and the variety of tastes, you could argue that milk is probably one of the most versatile ag products that we produce, just due to the vast variety of uses we have for milk. So we can extend the shelf life by separating it out into different products, freezing, like we said, our ice cream and things of that nature. But it is a staple of everyone's diet, and I hope that you continue to drink milk on a regular basis and support the dairy herds of America. It is truly a nutritious, it's an extremely good food product for us, okay? And then when you think about I gotta check my notes here quick. We're looking good. So the main thing you gotta remember is that this great milk that we have, it doesn't happen by coincidence. It's some solid milk. So I'm just going to end the episode today by you watching me drink some of this milk. Good till the last drop. So thank you for joining me for episode 6. We will see you tomorrow. That is our last Sun Pump commercial of the day right there. We're going to hear from Casey's General Store. You came for the pizza, but you accidentally got gas. So we will see you tomorrow on episode number 7. Have a great night.